Hello, welcome to the 5 Minute Geek Show, episode 6. We're going to be talking today about CMSs, static site generators, and other ways to maintain code and content and all that kind of stuff. So I'm Matt Stauffer, I'm your host, 5minutegeekshow.com, F-I-V-E. 5 Minute Geek Show on Twitter, number 5, not F-I-V-E. And I just submitted to iTunes today, switched over to simplecast.fm at Adam Wathen's suggestion. And here's hoping that's all going to go smoothly. Simplecast.fm is $12 a month, which is a little more than I wanted to spend on this originally, but it's just so amazing for hosting your podcast. I couldn't turn it down. All right, so basically what we want to talk about today is when a client or me, 5 Minute Geek Show, comes to you and says, I want the ability to set up a website and I want to be able to manage the content that's on the website. Because most of the time it's not just one static set of website content that's there forever. It's a set of content that's going to be edited, it's going to be updated, it's going to be pulling from a source that's not really embedded in the code. So you want to separate your code and your data, right? And so you use something. You use some kind of system, whether it's going to be a static site generator, whether it's going to be a Laravel kind of framework, an Express or Ruby on Rails, or you use the CMS. And what I've been finding a lot is the CMS world is pretty separate from the making your own websites world, and then static site generators are the special, like, super geeky section, in the create your own code kind of world. So basically, when a client comes to us and says, hey, we want you to build this kind of website, we've got to look at all the different options that are available to us. And to be very honest, I'm going to say a static site generator is never going to be an option for a client, almost ever, probably never. And just for those who don't know, what a static site generator is, it's a very geeky tool that has a lot of benefits, and that's why we're going to talk about it. It has a lot of benefits that benefits us, the developer. And it basically says, look, hold all of your content as a markdown file usually, or some other kind of source file that is in code, that's in your Git repository, and then run some kind of thing. Usually it's going to be, in PHP, or it's going to be in Node. So Sculpin is the main one in PHP, and Jekyll with a Octopress building on it is the main one that you're going to deal with in Ruby, and then there's some Node-based ones as well. And what that ends up being is you basically run this program on all of your source and your configuration, and it spits out a whole bunch of HTML, which you then host somewhere, and it's totally flat, no databases needed or anything. So with a static site generator, it's easy. There's no databases, there's no migrations, everything lives in your Git repository. Setting up the building process and all that can be complicated, plus everything is totally geeky and in Git and in Markdown and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to log in from your phone and edit files, but it's very simple. There's no crazy management you have to set up a new environment. Just clone your Git repository and it's deployed. That's it. Static HTML files. It's fast. Architecture is simple. There's a lot of beautiful brilliance there. Of course, the number of clients that you can say, oh yeah, just clone a Git repo, edit some Markdown files. Yeah, it's not a client-facing thing, but you'll notice that a lot of geek websites and geek blogs end up using it. So that's like the holy grail for a developer experience. In between, we've got this world of Laravel, Ruby on Rails, all that kind of stuff, where we are possibly using databases or some other kind of data store, but we're really kind of writing all the code by hand, and we're writing database migrations, which is basically scripts to tell your system that when you go to a new environment or a not totally up-to-date environment, here's things to run to make the database be in sync with what we want it to be. So as a result, the developer ends up getting total control over the database architecture and all that. But there's a lot of work you got to do. And so that's middle. And then the end is CMSs. And so the CMS is kind of like the WordPress space or Drupal or Craft or Expression Engine or whatever it ends up being, where a whole bunch of stuff is already built for you. It's a really great user experience for the end user, and the developer has to do minimal work in order to get really easy CRUD, which is create, read, update, delete. So basically managing different types of data. It's very easy. All the different blocks of content editors and drop downs and social sharing are all built in as plugins. The problem is it's a lot of work to keep your environments in sync. None of these tools really have a good system set up for keeping for example, when you make a change to the architecture of one of your post types or something like that, how do you sync that between your environments? And it just doesn't end up being a thing. So to me, the holy grail is something that combines the best of each of these worlds. And to me, the best of each of these worlds, the reason we love static site generators and the reason it's so attractive to us is, first of all, it's flat, it's very performant, there's no database architecture. But second of all, there's no crazy syncing of architectural systems or migrations or anything like that. It's just the data's there and you run it and it's the same every single time. You don't have to worry about, opening up a SQL editor or whatever and copying databases around. In the CMS world, the desire is to have these really easily reusable components. But the problem is, the difficult thing is syncing your data is just a total pain. And Craft is kind of doing a good job there, but they've still got a ways to go. So to me, the holy grail that I'm aiming towards, and I want to hear folks say, well, yeah, that already exists here or whatever. My thought is we're probably going to find it by tweaking Craft, working with the Craft developers to make it better and doing plugins for Craft. But I want to hear from folks. The holy grail is pre-built components like Craft has, or Expression Engine, where you create a channel of content, you set what fields it has. It's really easy to spin up a new CMS quickly because of that. But syncing between environments is just a matter of committing whatever changes you made to your Git repository, hitting push, and then running some button on the remote end, and maybe even syncing data as well. So I've been thinking about basically, and here I actually wrote down what I think this end goal would be. It's basically, the Holy Grail is a CMS that exposes its data to external sources using either REST APIs and or models of some sort, database models of some sort. And it also has some kind of migration system, so I make my changes locally, and I can push code up, and those changes are made remotely without having to, every single time you make a change, do a database dump and sync it up and trying to remember, oh, did I make any changes in the public site in between since when I pulled it down remotely, made my changes locally, and then push the changes back up, and oh, I need to sync the data down, and I got to copy that one post because I made that post in between. Total mess. So the holy grail is this amazing CMS that has all these pre-built components, but has all these benefits of migrations and all that kind of stuff that you get from the static site generators and from the Laravel development world. That's it, out of time. Man, I just had enough time to describe the environment and what I want and not even go into it. So hopefully in the comments you guys are gonna talk about that because I'm out of time. So let's do the theme song. Still no instruments. I actually found a thing to plug my bass into my computer yesterday, and I didn't even know it would let me do it. I didn't know it had USB. So I actually started recording a bass line, but I didn't have time to finish it. So maybe tomorrow, or maybe next 5 Minute Geek Show, we'll have something. But for right now, let's do... Geek Show! I'm an idiot.